test, and the testing works. That's great. So why am I doing this? Well, the main reason why I'm doing it is because, I mean, other people are doing it for Hearthstone because they've got an expansion coming out, and like I really enjoyed those videos, and I feel like people should be doing this for Dominion. Why not? Yeah. Now, I would like to give a disclaimer. I'm pretty good at Dominion, and I have had a lot of plays with these cards. But there are people in the chat who are much better than me at Dominion. And there are also people in the chat who have played with these cards more than me. And I might say some things that are wrong, but they're just my opinion. And if you don't like my opinion, or you want to say your own opinion, well, I have a chat. And if you just take a look right down there, there it is. And if I think you've got a great point, then I will say it. Yeah, so let's talk about these cards. So Lost City, it's 2 cards and 2 actions, cost 5. When you gain it, each other player draws a card. Now, I didn't read all of the previews, but there was some comparison to Council Room, because, you know, when you play a Council Room, your opponents draw cards. On the other hand, playing a Council Room is, you know, it happens a lot more than buying a Lost City, gaining a Lost City. All of those things, really. So that makes Lost City really freaking good. I mean, when you want a village, Lost City is amazing. And I feel like Lost City might compare a little better to Governor than it does to Council Room. Because, I mean, even though Governor gives you the benefit on play, like, I mean, if I want an embassy, my opponent getting a silver and it helping them is not going to stop me. If I want Lost City, my deck is amazing. So, I mean, that. The drawback just does not seem important. It's basically about as important as, you know, Council Room's drawback when you play it. It's like you buy the card because you want it, you want the draw, you want the buy. And like this. So I don't really think that this is a showstopper. In fact, it's less of a consideration in my mind than any of the drawbacks on like the cards it's being compared to, like Council Room and Governor, simply because it doesn't happen as often. But you know, it's Lost City. We've played with level 2 cities. We know how good they are. That's how good this is. Only it works right away, so that's great. Let's move on to Magpie. Wait, Steph says the drawback on Lost City is about as ignorable as the cursing on Ig. I think it's more ignorable, just because if there's no trashing, the cursing on Ig becomes a big deal. That depends on the board. Obviously, everything depends on the board. So let's talk about Magpie. So Magpie, let me read it. Card action. You reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a treasure, put it in your hand. If it's an action or victory card, you gain a Magpie. So this guy, he attracts his friends if he didn't find what he wants. It costs 4. And it replicates itself. So, like, there's a comparison to Rats. The difference between Magpie and Rats is that Rats is a bad card most of the time, and Magpie is a good card, I think, almost all of the time. Like, you have to get edge casey to come up with situations where Magpie is bad, because it's a cantrip. But you need synergy in order for Rats to be good. So from that perspective, like, Magpie's good, and when you gain one, you know, a lot of the time you're happy about it. And I mean, it's good. It's draw. It can draw you treasures. I mean, you can increase your hand size with this thing. Granted, you can't play like more than 5 action cards with Magpies. So it's like, it's kind of the apothecary style of draw, where like, yes, it increases your hand size, but it doesn't make your engine function by itself. You need some synergy. Magpie is here's the thing I have with Magpie. I love the new set, and Magpie is one of the cards in the set that I just don't really like, and there's so few of those. But the reason I don't like it, and that doesn't mean it's bad, it doesn't mean it's not fun. It's just that, I mean, you open Magpie because it's really freaking good. And if you don't open Magpie, you're going to wish you had opened Magpie because the other guy's going to open Magpie, and then he's going to, like, get a really bunch of cards and win. And then a lot of the times, like from my experience, you buy your first Magpie, and then you just kind of hope you end up with more Magpies than your opponent. Now, She Can't Say No says most of the time you want to keep buying them until they are gone. That has not been my experience. Usually there's something better to buy for 4 or less than additional Magpies. Hopefully there's something better to buy. Maybe there's not. Maybe you just keep on getting them because you want cantrips. Maybe you want some draw, but I don't know, like, usually you just kind of hope you get more Magpies than your opponent. Or, like, maybe you want to hit 5, and Magpie really helps you hit 5, you know? Like, a lot of the time, it's a lot like Wishing Well, in that you open Magpie Silver, and you're probably going to be hitting 5. But if your Magpie doesn't help you hit 5, if it hits an estate, like, you got a Magpie, great, but that Magpie ain't helping you hit 5. It kind of failed. Maybe you have more Magpies, but if hitting 5 was important, you know, maybe that's not what you wanted. The thing is, like, okay, sometimes you get what you want, sometimes you don't get what you want, but, like, most of the time, like it's got the Urchin feel in the opening, where, like, you just kind of go with it and hope it works out. And if it doesn't work out, you're way behind. And competitive people like myself, wow, I'm about to make a terrible generalization. I don't like that, and I think it's because of my competitive nature playing Dominion. Also, what's this? I don't know what this is. This white thing right there? What is that? Okay, so She Can't Say No has clarified, and that has gone. I need to find some way to adjust this so that these stay longer. But She Can't Say No said, you want to win the split, and additional Magpies disproportionately help you to do so, and this is true. Not buying it over a 5, obviously, but definitely on 4. I don't know, like, if there's any other 4 cost that's good for my deck, like, I'm buying that, and I'm just going to be gaining Magpies with Magpies. Like, that feels much better to me. So, anyway, does anyone know what this is? This little white area? Let me zoom in, although the resolution's not going to be too great. Oh. This thing right there. What is that? I can't tell. E says it is the scroll, but it's not the scroll because the scroll, it doesn't come out as much, yeah?
We are officially on. Here.
My fiance is working on the invitations to our wedding. She has come in here to tell me that she has made significant progress, and then she made a noise that a dinosaur would make.
Well, I was singing to the bird.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she loves... So, this is Magpie. It's a card in the new set, and it's a bird, because, you know, I mean, magpies are birds. She likes the eye. The eye of Magpie. Bird eyes are pretty funny. This might be your favorite card, and you'll probably like it even more because I don't really like it all that much. Well, Magpie's an annoying bird. There you go. It is a scroll.
Your annoying face.
It's just an opening into the garden. Okay, that's what She Can't Say No says. You know the banner that the name is on. That's what it is. It looks like sunlight reflected on the marble. Like the edge of the card is a pole. It's a reflection on something that's on the edge of the card. I don't know, it just looks really white. Anyway, that bothers me, apparently. Just thought you'd like to know about that. Let's move on to Hero. So, here's the thing about Hero. You can't really talk about Hero without talking about the entire chain, and I can't talk about the entire chain right now. So, yeah. Like, I think it's known that this is, you know, it upgrades into champion, and that's it, and you have to upgrade through this chain, and this is one link in the chain. I mean, I really can't. I don't feel like I can say very much more about it, so I won't. This will have to wait until the set is released, and we'll get to him. But the artwork, that's very compelling. I can't wait to see, like, how this one person evolves in the form of his life. Leopold says, how often do you choose not to upgrade something? I would say it's edge casey when you choose not to upgrade something. Like, if Hero was the only gainer on the board, and for some reason none of the other cards in this chain were better than Hero at gaining the things that you wanted, then maybe you would yeah, I don't think I can comment on that. So, yeah, anyway, we'll move on from Hero. I don't want to get bogged in trying to say things and then not being able to say anything. Let's talk about these ones. Alright. So, these are the reserve cards, and we'll talk about the reserve mechanic. There's this thing called the Tavern Mat. You have a Tavern Mat, and most of these cards, when you play them, they go onto your tavern. Well, all three of these. When you play them, they go onto your Tavern Mat, and then they stay there until you call them. And calling is moving it from your Tavern Mat into play, and the cards tell you when you can call them and then what you do when you call them. So that's the Tavern Mat mechanic. Let's talk about Guide. Guide's fun. I love Guide. This makes me so happy. So it's card action. It goes on your Tavern Mat. And then at the start of your turn, you can call it. And if you do, you discard your hand and you draw 5 cards. So you don't like your hand? Get a new one. Your hand got militia? Get a new one. Your hand sucks or you just need to cycle? Get a new one. That's what Guide's for. Guide is so good because, I mean, the obvious comparison here is to Scheme. Scheme is a cantrip for 3, so it's got the same opportunity cost as Guide. And it basically does the same thing in your deck, which is cantrip, so it doesn't exist in a sense. And then Scheme, in a sense, helps you to play your important cards more often, and Guide does that. Their effects are just different. Scheme is, I want to play one copy of a card more often, but it anti-cycles you. So you're just getting the important cards more often because of your Scheme. Guide kind of does that in the other way. It flushes all of the bad cards away. To be honest, I feel like that's probably better in more cases than Scheme. And this is partially because of the value of cycling, and also because, I mean, Guide can fix a lot of situations that most other cards can't fix. There are a lot of other ways to play your important cards more often that exist in Dominion. There's not as many ways to take care of a bad starting hand. Now, Scheme can prevent that. There are other preventative mechanics, but Guide is, I think it's probably the best at accomplishing this, at least from the examples I can think of, unless you've got some really mind-boggling synergy. But, like, as far as one card goes, Guide's really good for this. And when you're playing an engine and you hit a dud turn and you lose a turn, like, that's so enormous. Like, a turn is an endless amount of time. If this card finds your Trasher one turn quicker, if this card prevents you from turn 5 Chapel Syndrome, If this card gets you past a dud hand so that you can score points and take away endgame options for your opponent, this card won you the game of Dominion. You win the game of Dominion because of this card. And like, there's just so many situations where that can happen, and the opportunity cost is I have $3 and I don't want a silver and I want this card instead. Like, with a gainer, you're getting a guide. You're probably getting 2. Sometimes you only get 1. Like, it's so good, and it feels so good playing your engine and knowing you have a guide on your tavern mat. It's so good. Let's move on from guide. Everyone is speculating about other things besides guide, but I wanted to gush about guide for a little bit more. Duplicate. When you play it, it just goes on your tavern mat. It's terminal, doesn't do anything. Super bad. However, when you gain a card costing up to 6, you can call this, and you gain another copy of that card. So, the first time I saw this card, it was a different card than this. It was, it's changed into the form that it is now, for balance purposes mostly. And the obvious synergy here is Grand Market, right? If you get that, you have a duplicate or 2 on your tavern mat, you get your Grand Market turn, and all of a sudden you've got 3 Grand Markets, and you're just way, way farther ahead because you had duplicate. There are other synergies, right? I mean, any spammable kingdom card that's 6 or less, obviously, duplicate is going to help you with. And the comparison, the first comparison to me that comes to mind for duplicate is Haggler. Why Haggler? Well, it's a gainer, right? Duplicate is a gainer. The main differences between duplicate and Haggler is, first of all, Haggler gets you different cards, and duplicate gets you the same card. So duplicate works better with spammable cards, and Haggler works better when you want different types of components at different costs. Oh, hey, Leo says obvious synergy is Border Village. Yeah, that's pretty stinking good. You can duplicate a Border Village, and then you get all sorts of cool stuff. The difference between duplicate and Haggler is duplicate is less powerful and arguably more flexible. Less powerful because it doesn't do anything the turn you have it. More flexible because you don't have to use it on the turn you play it. So if you had a bad turn with your Haggler, you're just screwed, but you have a bad turn with your duplicate, well, that's okay because you can just call it later. They're both terminal, and duplicate costs less, and I mean, 5 is a lot more than 4. 4 and 5 are, very more different numbers than just about any other 2 numbers in Dominion that are adjacent to each other. And that's true. I mean, Haggler is a much better card than duplicate, and it deserves to cost more. So, that. But I mean, it's a gainer, and if you think about it as a gainer, I mean, you're going to do pretty well with the card. So, that. Oh, I guess another comparison you can make is Talisman, right? It costs 4. However, Talisman's a treasure that gives you 1, and this is a terminal action. They both gain you duplicates of cards, but this one works on more cards and in more situations. It just is a terminal that does nothing as opposed to a treasure that gives you $1. So, yeah. She Can't Say No says, duplicate is significantly weaker with Swamp Hag. And a duplicate is actually a good way around Swamp Hag because, Swamp Hag gives you... we haven't talked about Swamp Hag yet. I won't explain the joke. She Can't Say No made a funny. You guys saw it here. Let's talk about Coin of the Realm. Coin of the Realm is one of my favorite cards in the new set. Coin of the Realm is it's treasure reserve. So when you play it, it's a treasure. And it gives you $1. And it goes in your tavern mat. And then when you call it, you can call it directly after resolving an action, and then when you call it, you get 2 actions. So it's that village we've all dreamed of that works when there's no actions left. So you don't have to worry about dead draw if you've got a Coin of the Realm on your tavern mat. You can just dead draw, and then if you have actions you feel like playing, just call your coin, you got 2 actions, and you can play your actions. It's so good. The tricky thing about coin is you can't, I mean, if I have a coin in my hand and then I have terminal draw, that doesn't help me. I can't play my coin as an action. I have to wait till a buy phase, and then I have to play my coin, and then it goes on my tavern mat, and then it's my next turn before I can call it for actions. So a lot of times when you're building a deck with villages and terminals, there's this tendency to have too many terminals, because I can get the terminals I need, and then when I pick up villages, my deck can click. And sometimes that's a proper way to build your deck. Sometimes that's just what you got to do. Coin of the Realm, if that's your village, or if you're going to use it as your village in this phase of building your deck, you really have to think about that. You have to play that, because you have to buy it in time to draw it, play it, before you ever need to use it. So you have to buy your coin a little earlier, and think about that. Also, the other thing is, it's kind of like a twofer, in the sense that 1 coin will give you the effect of 2 villages. And I say this because it doesn't cost an action to play, but it gives you 2 actions. So the number of terminals you can theoretically play in some given turn is upped by 2, but I mean, you can't call your coin every turn. Once you've called it, it's in play, and then you have to draw it again to play it. So you can only get 2 actions every other turn. And the rhythm of that is different. Yeah, it's different than having a village you can play every turn for 1 action. I have a card that I can play every other turn that gets me 2 actions. So in that sense, if you're using coin as your village like that, you want to sort of have them in pairs, and you definitely want to have them staggered. With Fishing Village, you're not really out actions if you don't stagger them. It's just a little awkward to draw more on 1 turn sometimes, so usually you want to stagger them. It's much more important that way with Coin of the Realm. But the fact is, like, coin is amazing because it's basically like drawing all of your villages at the start of your turn if you're going to play it that way. You don't have to worry about, oh, well, this turn my fishing villages were at the bottom of my shuffle, so I'm totally screwed and my deck stalls. And then now I don't even have duration cards in play. Like, a lot of times those duration type engines can really fall apart very quickly and then lose you the game. I just played a league match earlier today where that happened to my opponent, and then I basically got a free win. Was there anything he could have done about that? I don't know. Maybe not. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes you just get a bad draw and you're totally screwed. And that kind of thing doesn't happen with coin. Coin is so flexible, right? So that's super good. All you have to do is just draw your draw card. So that's one less thing you have to draw early on in your turn in order for your turn to function. So that's pretty nice. Steph says, yes, he also played badly. I haven't gone over it yet, so I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I haven't had the time to go over that. So yeah, that's Coin of the Realm. Coin of the Realm, so much fun. You're going to feel very different building your deck than you have with any other card, any other village. And that's so refreshing. And this treasure reserve thing, I originally credited Donald X with coming up with it. It was last footnote suggestion. Like this, it didn't start out as a treasure reserve, right? It started out as an action, and it was probably similar to Fishing Village in that sense. And then it was a treasure reserve, and I was like, oh well, that's exotic, and it just was so good. This card's so good, made me so happy. Leopold says, I wouldn't have played badly if I didn't have bad luck. Yeah, you make your own shuffle luck. That's a thing that happens. And she can't say no. What game are you referring to? This is a league match earlier today. It's on my channel. And some funny things are being said in the chat. Let's I think that's about enough for these. All right. That was a refreshing sip of water. Yeah, I could turn on my webcam. Yeah? Webcam? Huh? No? Webcam, what happened to you? Did I just ruin something? Webcam? Oh, there you are. Good. Hi. Hi, guys. It's me. So, orange cards! Ah! Orange cards! It's long been said that orange cards are better than other cards. Let's see if that holds true here. Let's start off with Amulet. So let's read this thing. It's a $3 action duration. Now and at the start of your next turn, you choose one. And the three choices are $1, trash a card from your hand, or gain a silver. So these, I guess the comparison that you kind of want to make is with Steward, right? It's kind of a duration Steward, where Steward, it gives you the choice, three choices, two things each. And this one, you kind of split the choice up over 2 turns. So you get 3 choices, you get one thing now and one thing next turn. And that's kind of like Steward. Costs the same, hey, and it's terminal, great. Let's talk about the similarities and the differences. So the first one, money, that's just like Steward. Trash a card, it's also just like Steward. Gain a silver, that's very different than drawing cards. So that's the big comparison. Now, Steward is my favorite card in Dominion. And the reason it is my favorite card in Dominion is because it combines trashing and draw. I love trashing my cards, and I love drawing cards. So, I love Steward. This doesn't draw cards, and so it doesn't scratch that Steward itch for me. On the other hand, it does different stuff, so it's a different card. Would I say it's stronger than Steward? No, I would say it's weaker than Steward. I think Steward's a much better card. Why am I saying that? Well, the money, $1 now and $1 next turn. It's give or take. Whether or not that's like better than silver. I mean, you get more flexibility because you can choose other benefits if you would rather not have the dollar. But it's, in general, I would say it's not as good as the $2. Although it's debatable. That depends on a lot. She Can't Say No says to my, I had said I love trashing cards and drawing cards. He says, then you must love Mercenary, Adam. And yeah, but Mercenary doesn't increase your hand size, so that's not the same. Great, trashing card from your hand. So you can trash 2 cards now, or you can trash 1 now and 1 later. Or maybe you don't have to trash 2 because you only wanted to trash 1. I would say in general this is a lot weaker than Steward's ability. And why is that? Well, first of all, you want to trash early so you're opening Amulet, right? If I buy a Steward and I open with a Steward, if I draw that Steward on turn 3 or turn 4, I'm trashing 2 cards before I ever shuffle my deck. The cases where Amulet will trash me 2 cards before I ever shuffle my deck are much fewer because that basically only happens on turn 3. Also, a double Amulet opening, I don't get the chance to trash 4. Best case, I trash 3. And it's just as likely as Steward, only I just get to trash less cards, and then my Amulet misses a shuffle. Let's contrast this with the case. So best case, Steward is still better in terms of thinning you. as the cases get worse, which are more likely than this best case, if you draw your amulet on turn 4, like, that's super slow. You've trashed one card this shuffle, and your trasher has missed that shuffle. So that's like drawing your steward on turn 5, which is bad. That's super bad. Now, Steph brings up a point, and she can't say no. They both bring up this point where you're not trashing all at once, so you might be able to buy something. Now, that's something that Steward might not be able to do for you. However, I would say, in my experience, and this isn't always the case, but I'm just going to make sort of a generalization, is much more often that I would prefer the Steward in that case to Amulet, because most of the time the cards that I really want to buy and that I'm glad I bought while I was trashing, they cost 5, and Steward's much better at helping me hit 5 than Amulet is. If I want to gain a bunch of cheap junk, yeah, maybe I want to gain a bunch of cheap junk. Whatever. I mean, it could be better sometimes. I think in the majority of cases, that's not the case. Now, the chat continues along the lines of if you want a lot of $3. Now, you can't really talk about that without talking about the last ability of Amulet. So gain a silver. So Amulet likes to gain you silvers, and generally speaking, like, you can get more $3 hands with Amulet. So, like, if you want lots of 3s, then maybe this is the way to go, especially if they're silvers. And yeah, that's very different than drawing cards. In my life as a Dominion player, I generally get more happy about drawing cards than gaining silvers. But gaining silvers is good, and gaining other $3 cards is good. So that's the thing. And that's the main difference between the two cards, right? You just have to figure out, that's what Amulet is more geared to. Now, it's very rare, obviously, that you're going to have the choice between Amulet and Steward, but, now you're prepared. She Can't Say No says gaining silvers is awful. Well, it just wouldn't be right if you didn't say that gaining silvers was awful. Gaining silvers is pretty good. Sometimes. I like silvers. Joseph2302 says, so when are you playing with these cards on your stream? As soon as I can! Let's talk about these other cards. Swamp Hag, $5 action attack duration. Until your next turn, when any other player buys a card, he gains a curse. Start of your next turn, $3. So you play this, you don't get a benefit right away. That's no fun. And, I mean, this being a duration card, it misses the shuffles and, the start of your next turn. Money next turn is, in general, not as good as Money Now. So, yeah. They want me to stream IRL Dominion. I've actually tried that before. I've tried to set it up. There are a lot of technical issues. I don't have the hardware for that. So, anyway. And I don't think it would be very much fun to watch. It would be really difficult to follow. You'd probably need commentators. So, I mean, if you're going to say money next turn is better than this turn, like, yeah, if you want spiky things like big money buying provinces, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I would still most of the time rather have it. It's not as good, but, like, there are cases when it's good. That's true. The attack part is one of the weaker cursing attacks, mainly because it can be dodged. Now, is it good to always dodge it? I would say it's rare the case where you just want to dodge it, but, like, a silver and a curse, probably not worth putting into your deck. Gold and a curse? Yeah, probably. So, in a sense, it's not always a junking attack, but rather like an economic attack, so to speak. So, it's certainly a different flavor of attack, and I'm really glad that this is another attack that gives the choice to your opponent, right? Mountebank doesn't really do that, but Torturer does. And I'm glad we have a card here that doesn't just make games totally unfun sometimes, like Torturer. Swamp Hag is definitely like that, and the effectiveness of the attack varies so widely with everything else that's on the board that it's a very interactive attack. And so like there's been worry about like, well, Cultist is not really interactive because it's too powerful, and like that's definitely not the case with Swamp Hag. I really enjoy the card. I really do like Swamp Hag. Let's talk about Hireling. Hireling is a $6 action duration. At the start of each of your turns for the rest of the game, +1 card stays in play. You play it once, it's a terminal. For all of the rest of the turns of your game, you get 6 cards. So I'm going to go ahead and say this. This is printing a Ruin Library. It costs 2 less than Prince. You don't have to draw it with the Ruin Library, but you don't get the choice over what you print. So while I say Prince is a village, Hireling's not a village. Hireling is non-terminal draw. So printing anything is amazing. Printing a Ruin Library, it's amazing. You know, like, it's so good. You have 6 cards in your hand the rest of the time. It's like you went and you bought an Alchemist, only you don't have to worry about drawing it with your potion ever. You don't care. You just have it, and no one can take it away from you, and it's militia proof, and like that's so good. That's really, really good. On the other hand, you had to draw it once. You had to use a terminal action to play it, which decreased your hand size then, which is kind of like Prince also. Hireling's good. It's very slow, though, because every time you want that draw, you have to spend a terminal, and that's definitely not the case with Alchemist. With Alchemist, you just buy the card. Hireling, you have to buy it, draw it, play it. Alchemist, you just buy the card, and then it's there. So it's slow. Powerful, slow, kind of like Prince, not so much. I mean, that's a pretty good way to put it in terms of power level. Leopold says, and it's gone down here, but he says these durations feel a bit weaker on average than the existing durations. So I can address that. I think when you say weaker, I think, I mean, there were no duration attacks before. Sometimes you really want an attack. You just want to attack your opponent, and Swamp Hag does that. So that's important. Other duration cards were really stinking good, like Wharf. Wharf is like the best $5 card in the game, or maybe like top 2 or 3. Wharf is so good, and that's mostly because drawing cards at the start of your next turn is super good. But I mean, these are different and they're slower. I don't know that makes them always worse. Their effects can be more powerful in certain situations. Their effects are a little bit slower, but they're very different. Amulet and a Slog, ridiculous. Amazing. Super califragilistic, so hot. You can draw comparisons, and you absolutely should. But, I mean, orange cards having something happen at the beginning of your turn that you don't have to deal with. It's always good. It's been good. It'll always be good. $3. I mean, money isn't as good as other things, but like it's still good. So that. And that's all I have to say about that right now. Let's talk about these guys. Oh boy, we're gonna have to adjust my monitor here, aren't we? Yeah, we'll just do one at a time. Events! Hey guys, see that? We broke it. We broke Dominion. You know how you normally hold the cards like this? Now they're like this. It's so cool. Events, they're not cards. They don't go in your deck, but you buy them in a sense. I mean, you don't. It's not really buying a card. You're triggering the event, and it costs you money in a buy. So you're buying an event. You're triggering an event. These things happen. And then a thing happens, and then you do the thing. So this one, Expedition, you pay $3, and you draw 2 extra cards for your next hand. It's a one-shot. It's really nice. You can open with this, and then shuffle on turn 2 if you want. Actually, that's not good at all. I think it's much better on turn 2, probably. But yeah, Expedition. If you really want to hit 7, and you have $3 and you don't want to buy a silver, get an Expedition. A lot of the events are best used tactically, and they're just, you can just imagine where there are tons of situations where you got $3 in a buy. Maybe you don't want to put anything in your deck. Great, go on an Expedition. If you've got $3 in a buy to spare and you're greening and you built that into your deck, do this. You have reliability. I mean, there are so many endgame scenarios where this becomes very valuable, where I don't want to empty the province pile anymore, but I want to make sure that I can kick off next turn. Like, so good. Lots of places where this is useful. If it's not useful, don't do it. I feel like, I mean, the way that I've tried to look at events is you just play them tactically. And to be fair, I'm not very good at that. It's easy to forget about them, at least it is on Isotropic. Hopefully, IRL, it's much more difficult. But, yeah, this is pretty good, and it's nice, and it just feels so different. You get to pay money for an immediate effect as opposed to buying a card and putting it in your deck. It feels so good. Trade. This card, I named this card. I'm really proud of myself for naming this card because I'm a fanboy. I named this card. I named it Trade. It's kind of, I mean, it's not the most glamorous name, but I mean, that's what you're doing. So here, it's a $5 event. Trash up to 2 cards from your hand. Gain a silver per card you trashed. The big thing that I see here is a counter to junking attacks. Silver is much better than junk. I mean, expand costs 7. You have to draw it with the thing you want to trash. So that's a thing. Trade, on the other hand, is it's an instant effect. You don't have to put a trasher in your deck, and it's 5. It's more accessible. Now the thing is, you have to hit 5 while having cards in hand left that you want to trash. So like the $5 or the 5 copper hand, that's not going to work here. So it actually helps you to have silvers in your deck or something along those lines in order to do this. But the big synergy here is draw, right? Terminal or non-terminal draw can really get you a long way with trade, so that you can, spend 5 coppers and I've got 2 curses in my hand. Well, it's really good to trash 2 curses and get 2 silvers, and then the silvers help you have beneficial trades in the future too. So that's the thing. There are boards now. Trade wasn't always this way. Trade used to be a little more powerful. And I know there were games where you just would not go for junking because your opponent could trade away the junk and it would help them. And with the right kingdom, that can certainly happen. And it's yet another way to play defense in Dominion, which I love to do. If silver's not good, this may not be as good. But at the same time, like, silver's better than a lot of cards in Dominion. And so, this can help you get them. Yeah. It's a tactical thing. If you're getting the full value out of this, it's pretty easy to say. She Can't Say No says, you can also use it to trash your silvers into silvers. There you go. Look at that synergy. Alright. Mission. It's a $4 event once per turn. If the previous turn wasn't yours, take another turn after this one in which you can't buy cards. So let's just draw the obvious parallel here. Outpost. Mission is similar to Outpost. It gives you another turn. The number E says, when do events happen? Events happen when you buy them. As of right now, I think the only way to make an event happen is in a buy phase. So like black market or in your buy phase, in your normal buy phase. So you spend a buy and you spend $4 on this, and then you get the effect. Or you spend the buy and you spend the $5 and you get that effect. Like you can't play Ironworks and gain a mission. Like that's not a thing. Ironworks says gain a card. This isn't a card. This is an event. I mean, it's on a card, but it's the other way, so it's different. Yeah, I don't think you can do events because events are, yeah, black market restricts you to only black market decks. So yeah, that wouldn't work either. Yeah, so it's only in your buy phase. I guess in theory that might change with cards that the public doesn't know about or that haven't been invented yet. But so yeah, events buy phase, things that happen in a buy phase. So mission, let's talk about mission and outpost. They both give you an extra turn, and I was talking to someone about this. With outposts, you need enablers. A turn with only 3 cards is usually pretty bad. If you're playing an engine and you need to have a village and a draw card in order to kick off, it's hard to do that in 3 cards. You might be able to do it in 5. It's really hard to do it with 3. Now you can enable that maybe with strong trashing, or like with a courtyard, you top deck something, or a scheme. There's synergy that can provide you with ways to make the most out of your outpost turn. In a similar sense, mission has its own type of enablers. It's just that those enablers are completely different. With mission, you get your full 5 cards, but you can't buy anything. So you have to come up with something meaningful to do on your mission turn. You also, and here's another thing that that isn't as apparent just from reading the card. Mission costs you $4 in a buy. So like, yes, you want gainers here, but if you're spending your buy on your mission, then everything you're doing is gaining. And it's much harder to get provinces by gaining them. It's much easier to gain other cards. So this is something that you have to think about. If you're going into the end of the game, you might not be able to continue to go on missions. Mission is probably much better for building because you can gain, you can trash, you can attack. Like, these are things that are much more relevant. You can cycle. They're much more relevant in the early part of the game. Outpost is all about buying. Once you have your deck set up, you can make use of the outpost turn. Mission seems a little bit better in the early game and the mid game. So that's a thing. Mission's good, but it needs the right enablers. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. E hasn't read the previews as much. So he's coming here for Dominion Wisdom. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm kidding. Alright. Let's do some more events. So here's Lost Arts. $6 event. Move your +1 action token to a supply. Yeah, silver's a really good card. To an action supply pile. When you play an action card, when you play a card from that pile, you first get +1 action. This is when I think of one card from Adventures that defines the set, it's Lost Arts. That's the one. And Leo's getting excited about Borrow. We'll get there. Just keep your pants on, buddy. Lost Art. Wow, I never really looked at the art for this. That's really nice. I like it. So basically, Lost Arts is a village, only it's super good. Like, you play a village and a smithy, and you get the same effect as 2 labs. but 2 labs cost more than a village and a smithy, and there's a reason for that, because it's better, right? A village and a smithy is not as good as 2 labs. Non-terminal draw is better than village terminal draw. That's a thing. Like, it's way better. And Lost Arts will give you, it makes it so easy for you to draw your deck. And boring, too expensive. That's just not true at all. It makes it very easy for you to draw your deck. And I think the best card to compare Lost Arts to is King's Courts. There are King's Court games, and there are non-King's Court games. There are things that you can do with King's Court on the board that are just too ambitious. They're pipe dreams, unless you have King's Court. And then where there's King's Court, there's a way. And the game feels very different. It feels like you're breaking Dominion. You're just doing ridiculous things. If I want to find the most ridiculous way to break something in Dominion, King's Court is going on that board. Lost Arts is it breaks the game in a different way, but it breaks it in the same way that King's Court does in concept. I hope I'm being clear about this. If there's Lost Arts and Terminal Draw, you're drawing your deck. You're doing it. The Terminal Draw card is gone immediately, and then now you're drawing your deck, and it's so good. Like, it's super amazing. I feel like there's some people that aren't going to like Lost Arts, because there's some people that don't like King's Court. But that's Lost Arts. Borrow. So Leopold can now get excited. We'll be looking for his comments in the chat here very shortly. Lost Arts fixes those boards, so would any village. But Lost Arts is much better than a village for those boards. Oh yeah, and let me address this. King's Court should cost $6. We played a lot with this card, with a lot of different prices and a lot of different ways of implementing this before it became an event. 6 is a good price for this card. I'm happy with that, and I think 7's probably fair for King's Court. Let's talk about Borrow. The artwork. Yeah, Linnell Ingram. Yeah, probably not my favorite artist. This is ridiculous. So anyway, let's read it. It's a $0 event. It gives you a buy. So it doesn't cost a buy and it doesn't cost dollars, which is important because once per turn, if your -1 card token isn't on your deck, put it there and plus $1. Now, since right now the only way to trigger events is in your buy phase, most of the time what this means is that you're going to start your next turn with 4 cards in hand. So you're attacking yourself, but you get $1 for this turn. You're trading something in the future for something now that you need. Usually cards are better than dollars. I mean, if your deck is good at all, a card is probably worth more than $1 just by money density. And money density is not really a good metric for determining what's but I think it's a conservative estimate at the same time. What I'm trying to say is cards are worth more than dollars, but $1 now can be ridiculous. Hitting 5 in the early game is the biggest example, or hitting that price point. This can get you there. And basically when you want to hit that price point and you need this to get you there, like you just do it. Like and you're very happy that Borrow is here. It's a very easy decision. Like, you're not going to sit there and think about, oh man, I really want this mountebank and I'm about to shuffle, or this is probably going to be my best chance to get it. Hitting 5 here is very important, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Drawing 4 cards next turn, that's oh, that's so bad. You're never gonna think that. I mean, I guess you could think that, but you shouldn't, because hitting the price point now is like basically always more important 100% of the time. I know, not 100%, like 94% of the time, something like that. It's probably closer to 96, but whatever. Let's not argue about it. This is really good, and like you're going to be doing this a lot. This happens a lot, and I should just. I mean, there are borrow games. It has to constantly be there because it's an event. You have to play it tactically. I mean, Lost Arts is something you can build your strategy around. Borrow is something that, I mean, yes, you might build your strategy around it, knowing that you might not have to invest in economy as much. But like, you're just gonna do this when you want to do it. So like, She Can't Say No says it's worth figuring out why the once per turn is there. I don't think thematically it makes much sense to do this more than once per turn. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about inheritance. Yeah, inheritance. This probably my favorite card in Adventures. It's a $7 event once per game. Set aside a non-victory action card from the supply, costing up to 4. Move your estate token to it. Your estates gain the abilities and types of that card. Inheritance. It's wonderful. Like, in games with estates, you don't want to trash your estates anymore. Estates become strictly better than some kingdom card that you want a lot of. If there's a card you want a lot of that costs up to 4, or that you can get to cost 4 or less, like, you don't want to trash your estates, and now you get a bunch of estates for this thing. They're arguing about the wording of the last card. Fine, I'm going to keep talking about this. Now, the tricky thing is, you got to hit 7 with estates in your deck. One of the easiest ways to hit 7, obviously, is to trash your estates, because estates don't help you hit 7. So that can be tricky. You might employ the use of some other thing, like maybe borrow, to help you do that. So it's very interactive there. And then when you're playing IRL, and maybe they're going to do something like they did with the Band of Misfits artwork on GoKo for this card, where like your estates get the artwork of the card, but like you're playing IRL, and I just drew a hand of like 2 estates and like a moat or something, and 2 coppers or something, and you're like, oh, well, this hand is terrible. I stalled this turn, and then you realize, oh wait, I inherited Throne Rooms. This is an amazing turn. It feels so good. Inheritance. This is just so much fun to play with. Like there are some cards that are good and fun, and then there's some cards that are not good but fun. Inheritance is fun, but it's also really good. I think that's about all I have to say about it. I could gush about this for a while, but I don't feel like gushing about cards as long as I gushed about Guide, because Guide is just so amazing. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about Inheritance. But we're not done. We have 5 more cards to talk about. Here we go. Storyteller. They're talking about the synergy between Baron and Inheritance, which is a big synergy, for sure. Baron makes use of your estates and helps you hit 7. It gives you spiky hands for that. So like that's really good. Like that'll go in the that'll go in the thread about useful card combos. And then Joseph 2302 says, "I'm pregnant." Storyteller. Let's talk about Storyteller. That's a $5 action, gives you an action and $1, and then you play up to 3 treasures from your hand. Pay all of your money, and you get cards for every $1 that you paid. So this dollar is really a card, right? That's what it's going to end up being. But you know, it's different that it's $1. I remember 3 pages of debate on how this is different than being $1, because it happens in between these 2 steps. So you can't get the card in between these 2 steps. You get the $1. But anyway, it sifts, right? It's a treasure sifter. It can let you sacrifice treasure payload of your deck in order to draw more cards. In a deck with treasures in it, for whatever reason, no copper trashing, maybe treasures are your payload, this can help you in reliability. So like it does have a place in those kind of decks. Also, when you're building and you have these coppers that you haven't gotten rid of yet, Storyteller can accelerate your building. Now it costs 5, so a card that accelerates you that costs 5 does have limited use. However, when it's good, let me tell you. What Storyteller is not good with is virtual money, because you have to spend all of it, no matter what. So you have to be careful, is what I'm saying. This is a difficult card to play right, but when it's in the right deck and you're using it properly, you can really get some explosive draw out of it. Playing coppers just to get past them, that's not what Storyteller is for. Like, you can do that and it's okay, but like that's not what you really want to be doing. What you really want to be doing is playing silvers and golds with this thing and drawing lots of cards. You want to be increasing your hand size. Like, right, if you just play coppers, it's a cantrip with sifting. It's like a different, sometimes better seller. If you're playing higher value treasures, like let's say you combo this with Soothsayer, like that's really good. The golds now, it's like, you know, kind of like Apprentice. It gives you less draw, but you keep the gold around. So that's Storyteller. Storyteller is a high skill card. E says decks without plus buys seem great for Storyteller. Yeah, see, because you don't get as much use out of extra coins, so you can use them for draw and reliability. I think like Storyteller Soothsayer. Soothsayer is probably one of the best enablers for Storyteller that I can think of. A gold gainer is you have a bunch of golds. Well, the golds are great for Storyteller. Haunted Woods. This is $5 action attack duration. So the attack part is until your next turn, when any other player buys a card, he puts his hand on top of his deck in any order. And then the benefit for you is at the start of your next turn, plus 3 cards. So like the other action attack duration, you play and it doesn't do anything for you right now. On the other hand, it attacks your opponent, you get a benefit next turn. Now let's talk about the benefit. 3 cards is much, much better than $3 in almost all cases. Drawing 3 cards at the start of your turn, like, you know how amazing Wharf is? This is better. This is better than Wharf. Now, it doesn't do anything on your first turn. It's attacking your opponent. But, like, this is frozen for anyone else. I don't think I'm having trouble with my stream. Might be just UE, but if it's frozen, you can't hear me. I'm just gonna keep going. So the way you play this is a little bit different than Wharf, but it's basically just as powerful as Wharf, I think, in terms of draw. Maybe a little less so, but not by much. The fact that these 3 cards happen at the start of your turn is really good. Like, it's super good. You're starting the turn with 8 cards in your hand. Holy crap! That's really good. And it's really good because you can draw your deck before your turn starts. You can play all your cards and then play your Haunted Woods at the end. It's not like you're hoping to draw your Wharves to try and draw your deck. Like, you can build a more reliable engine with this. Now, it's harder, it's slower, it's arguably more expensive, and there's this attack going on which is constantly messing with you or hopefully your opponent. But it's really good. Drawing your deck before your turn starts, it's really good. Now let's talk about the attack. Until your next turn, when any other player buys a card, he puts his hand on top of his deck in any order. Now, having multiple Haunted Woods in play doesn't really matter. I mean, it's the same as having 1 in play. Your opponent is faced with a choice. Let's say he's got he's played all of his treasures, all of his action cards. He's got 3 estates in his hand. If I want to buy that card, I have to top deck my 3 estates. That's really bad. So, like, people are going to be playing around this. Hopefully there's some kind of trashing. If there's not trashing, this attack is very significant. It's really going to hurt your opponent. Now, granted, he might have Haunted Woods in play that's going to help him. So it's kind of like Ghost Ship in that way, where the text of the card does help you soft counter or at least mitigate the attack that your opponent's playing on you. So there is that aspect to it. On the other hand, there are ways to use this to your advantage. With strong trashing, if I know I'm going to have a Haunted Woods played on me just about every turn, I can use that, like the top decking ability of Courtyard. I can buy an extra village and draw a card that I don't necessarily need, and then top deck them when I buy a card. So that can be used. Now, that's not sustainable because most decks need to put green cards in them in order to have points and win the game. And Haunted Woods attack is going to be a lot more significant then. The more you draw, the more potential junk cards you're drawing, and the more of a liability the Haunted Woods attack is going to be. This varies widely with the kingdom. So this is another interactive attack. Big money is affected very differently by this attack than engine decks are. And I think that's really cool. I think the attacks that are in this set, at least the ones that we've seen, are very interactive and they're novel, which is not an easy thing to do, having gone through the process. So, like, I know attack cards aren't the things that get you excited about life. I mean, I love attacking my opponent. Like, that, I live to do that. So, I like attacks, and I like defending against attacks. I like that kind of stuff. But these are really good cards, and I'm really happy that they're in the game of Dominion now. Transmogrify. Wow, I've never even looked at this artwork. This is pretty. Anyway, it's a $4 action reserve. When you play it, it's non-terminal, doesn't do anything else. It goes on your tavern mat. Now you can call it at the start of your turn. When you do that, you trash a card from your hand, and you gain a card costing up to 1 more than it, putting that card in your hand. So this is a trasher. It's kind of like Upgrade, only up to, so you can't thin with it. So it's good for trashing cards. That's the thing you can do with Transmogrify, but like the effect, how good it is at trashing cards is not very. Like that's really not why you get this card. This card is way overcosted and way too slow to be good if that's what you're using it for. What it's good for is the fact that that card goes into your hand immediately. So having a Transmogrify on your tavern map is really good for your reliability. You can like, if I've got like 2 smithies and I need a village and I didn't draw a village, I can just take an estate, transmogrify into a village, and my turn is saved. That's really good. You can also gain the right card for your hand now, which can be very useful. It's more of a card. It's cards you want to play more tactically, for sure. There are a lot of interactions. In general, Transmogrify is weak and slow, and it suffers from that same problem that Amulet did, right? Amulet had the problem where if you didn't draw it on turn 3, you're just really slow. Transmogrify is kind of the same way, and it has to stay on your reserve mat for at least 1 turn before you get any use out of it. So that's the thing. This card is so much fun. Amazing. Fun. Good times. I can't say enough good things about it. 2 more left. And I'm getting tired and I need to feed my fish. So I'm going to be done after this. Messenger. JSH's favorite card. It's a $4 action. It's a woodcutter plus the Chancellor effect. And then the text below the line has an on-gain ability. So when this is your first buy in a turn, gain a card costing up to $4, and each other player gains a copy of it. So it's a symmetrical effect that you can trigger if you want. And the symmetrical effect in the opening, I think, is when it's strongest, yeah. If my opponent's already had his $4 buy, he bought, I mean, the classic example is my opponent bought a potion, I can get Messenger Potion. Now he's got 2 potions, which he probably didn't want, and now I've got this free Messenger, which maybe I wanted. That's pretty good. Also, it's good for running out piles. I mean, especially in games with more than 2 players. This is 3 gains for only 1 gain. Well, only 1 buy, since you have to use a buy on it. So, it's good for running out piles. To be honest, like, I mean, it's good when Woodcutter's good, right? And the deck in your discard pile is nice, but that's not the reason you buy it, because no one buys Chancellor. So, it's a Woodcutter. It's good when Woodcutter's good. I would say the pile control ability probably comes up more than the Woodcutter ability. Maybe that speaks to how bad Woodcutter is, or how good this ability is. But it has that Stonemason potential where you have to start looking out for piles a lot earlier than normal. So that's the thing. Oh, by the way, Messenger gaining curses and trying not to go for cursing cards, but just evening the curse split with Messenger. It's not good. Don't do it. It's fun, but it's not good. So if you want to win, wouldn't recommend it. Alright, here's the last one. Giant. It's a big wall of text with some coins on it. Let's talk about what it does. So, it's a $5 action attack. You play it the first time and you play it again, and it's a different attack and effect, and that's this journey token mechanic. You turn your journey token over, it starts face up. So the first time you play your giant, it only gives you $1. Sad day. The second time you play the giant, you get $5, and then you get this ridiculous attack. So it's kind of like the giant who's walking, and when he steps with his white foot, when he steps with his right foot, he's smashing an entire village, and with his left foot, he's just balancing so that he can smash the next village. That's giant for you. So yeah, it's money. Attack, it gives you money. That's the benefit. The money is split over 2 turns, so that's a thing. It's $3 per turn on average, but it's different each turn, which is probably better. It's probably better than it just being the same. So, let's talk about the attack, though, because that's why you're buying this thing, right? Terminal money isn't really that exciting. So each other player reveals the top card of his deck, trashes it if it costs from 3 to 6. Otherwise, discards it and gains a curse. So it's the knight It's a night attack, right? Only one card instead of two cards. So it's a night attack, only it's more directed, and it has the clause where if it didn't hit, they get a curse. So it could be junking, could be trashing. If you can play enough giants on your opponent, well, their deck is going to be bad. You can't take away their provinces, but you can curse them, you can junk them, you can take away all their good cards. Making a giant-proof deck is pretty difficult to sustain. On the other hand, it's terminal, and you have to play it twice. You have to draw it twice, you have to play it twice to get this actual attack. And that's a big deal. This journey token thing, like, it may look innocent, but I mean most of the cards in Dominion, we think of their cost in terms of not only the amount of money you have to pay to buy the card, but you have to draw the card and you have to play the card. So like non-terminals have a different cost than terminals, because terminals, well, I mean, they take up your action, so they take up an action. Great. Non-terminals don't, and other cards help you play more terminals. This is like a double terminal. It takes 2 actions for you to get the effect, and it's like a double card. It takes 2 cards and 2 actions to get the effect. It's 2 cards. And that's a lot. Like the cost of that, because of this journey token thing, that's a lot. And when I think about opportunity cost of cards, Giant has that in a lot more. So you really have to consider that. If you can multiply the effect of the Giant, great. But Throne Room Giant is still 2 cards, and you're only getting that 1 effect. That being said, this attack is very slow. I liken it to Pillage. You really have to be playing it a lot, and you have to be able to handle the cost of playing it a lot in order for it to be effective. And it has to kind of be the focal point of your deck to stomp your opponent into bits. So that's Giant. I've never won a game by going for Giant. I did get crushed by Giant once. It felt bad. But it felt great for my opponent. E says, let's do a Highway Prince, set aside a Giant. Well, you would want to do that twice. You would really want to be setting aside 2 Giants for that. But yeah, that's just like Highway Prince setting aside 4 Saboteurs. It's really good, so you want to be doing it. Not that I've ever done that before. Yeah. So that's the previews. That's what I think.